Hello, my name is Lorna from Witham United Reformed Church with our midweek Keeping Connected video. At a time like this, many people must be wondering, where is God? Maybe some people have asked you that question even. It certainly wouldn't be the first time in history that people have begun to ask that very pertinent question. I've been reading about Joseph in the book of Genesis, and it strikes me that he might often have wondered where God was. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. He worked so hard for his new boss Potiphar in Egypt that he became a highly trusted member of the household and indeed was put in charge of it all. Until he was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife and he found himself in prison again. How did he cling on to his dreams and his hopes as they seemed to be disintegrating before his eyes? Where was God in all of this? Well, we know that the story ended very happily ever after, as it were. Throughout it all, God was there. He was not thwarted by man's evil thoughts and deeds. He used them to orchestrate his plan to rescue his special people from starvation. If you're not familiar with the story, then do have a read. It's in Genesis, chapters 37 to 50. It's a very good read. It includes lots of real-life drama, family intrigue, deceit and more. In fact, if it wasn't in the Bible, bits of it would not be recommended for children. During the times that life seemed to be totally out of control, did Joseph cry out to God? Did he plead with him? Did he doubt God, his goodness, his faithfulness, his purposes in his life? We don't know. He was human, so I suspect he did. And that's okay. It's fine to be real with God. After all, he knows exactly what we're thinking, so there's no point in trying to hide it. Speaking out is so much better than bottling it up anyway. A brief look at the Psalms shows that at least David and other psalmists had absolutely no hesitation in asking God difficult questions. So there is no reason why we shouldn't do the same. God's ways are so much higher and so very different from ours that it's not always helpful to try and guess what he is doing. However, there are two things that we can be absolutely certain of. The first one is God's nature, and the other is the final outcome. As far as God's nature is concerned, he is always faithful and good and just. He is merciful and full of compassion. God's nature will never change. And the final outcome? We know that good triumphs over evil. We know that God has the last say. We know that in the meantime, God's final victory is not in doubt. We also know he can use people from every nation, tribe and race in his purposes. And of course, that includes us. It's very easy to say that God is here. He's all around us, which of course he is. But he's invisible. We cannot see him with our eyes. We can only see the evidence of his activity. We recognise his hand in creation all around us. But for some people, this doesn't point to a living, loving God. So how will he be seen by them? God is also within us. Jesus promised that when he went back to be with the Father. He told his disciples he would come in the form of his Spirit to live within us. But in our hearts, he's also invisible to the naked eye and can only be seen through his activity. He uses us to make himself seen through words of encouragement, through our compassionate silence, through our acts of kindness. He uses us to be his eyes, his hands, his feet, his ears, his lips, and his heart, wherever we are and wherever he leads us. We know that God would never leave us or forsake us. We know that, I hope. But that's not necessarily what our hearts and our emotions are telling us, or indeed what the world around us is saying, particularly at this time. So here are some encouraging words. It's a paraphrase from part of Psalm 84. How enriched are those who find the strength in the Lord. Within their hearts are the highways of holiness. May we find our strength in the Lord, so that all we do, say and are reflect him. Advent. Yes, the season that leads to Christmas, starting soon. Advent starts at the end of November. It's going to be a very different Advent this year, but whatever else is cancelled, it certainly won't be Advent, Christmas, or indeed worship. We can worship wherever we are, and even if we cannot get together, we can worship together in spirit. In order to help us do this, Mark has prepared some Bible study material to be used after each Sunday in Advent. It's extremely relevant and topical. The theme is Light in Dark Places, and it will be made as widely available as possible, of course. There will also be an Advent devotional with a very short thought for the 25 days to Christmas. So there's still a lot to look forward to, and indeed, I look forward to seeing you next week. Bless you. Goodbye.